You are watching me, Mick, here on my YouTube channel, Movies TV Mad. You can also follow me on X at Movies TV Mad and on Instagram at Movies TV Mad X. Welcome to today's show. I don't know how long this video is going to be because I do want to watch Rebel Moon. I want to rewatch it because I watched it a while back, but I want to watch it now. It's going to be on Netflix today. It doesn't seem to be there yet, but by the time this video uploads, it should be there, and I should have seen it yet again. Anyway, huge breaking news. Yes, it's now official that Warner Brothers Discovery and Paramount Global are in negotiations to merge the companies together. If successful, this would make the Disney company look like a fucking marble. But what does this mean for DC? Well, first of all, this will take up to a year to ratify anyway. This is a long journey ahead. Right, but it's interesting. What does this mean for DC Studios? James Gunn, Peter Safran, Superman Legacy and all those plans. I told you a while back, those plans were never padlocked. And anything can go wrong with them, right? So that's a very, very interesting situation. Now, I think we all kind of knew, and I kind of pre-warned, once it was legal for Zaslav to either sell Warner Brothers off piece by piece, sell it outright, or merge it with another company, it was going to happen. This is not a shock to anyone. What the shock is about this, that the discussions to merge are with a giant like Paramount, because we were thinking Universal. But don't be surprised if we get a three-way merger. Because, boys and girls, Hollywood are on their knees, as we've discussed on a multitude of occasions. They're all finding it hard to survive. So I think you're going to get this situation where they're attempting to combine with each other. A three-way merger would make Warner Brothers a very, very powerful company. Universal, Paramount. But would it be ratified by monopolies and mergers? It would be very, very interesting, and it will be a historic situation. But let's deal with the situation we have in front of us, that Zaslav and the CEO of Paramount Global are in discussions to merge, which is a big surprise that these two companies are at least in discussions. We knew Zaslav would try and get rid of it, try and bring more money in, but we didn't think he'd go this direction. It's been an uncertain future for DC. It's gone through so many changes, both in the comics and in live action. I mean, since the DCEU was launched, we had the Sniderverse, we had the Berg and Johnsverse, we had the Hamadaverse, and we're getting the James Gunnverse. A term Gunn doesn't like, but it's going to be your verse. Well, that, James, is if it ever happens. Because this merger absolutely puts all of that in doubt. Yes, including Superman Legacy. It's probably still going to happen. There's a cast there. After all, that's what you're shouting out through your screens, right? What are you talking about, Mick? You're just trying to stir it up, ain't you? Yeah. No, I'm not. Anything can happen. Anything can happen in this business. You should never say the worst term to face to me in this business, that will never happen, Mick. The Snider Cut will never happen. Snider will never get the chance to finish his arc or do a Dark Knight Returns adaptation. Never gonna happen. Never say to me, never gonna happen. Because one thing's for sure, in this industry, anything's possible. We sat here as Smallville fans as the finale approached. Most people saying Rosenbaum wouldn't return as Luthor. Guess what? Surprise one day, he was coming back. Because business is business. They needed him back for the big numbers. And they got him. We got the Snider Cut. After everyone saying it didn't exist and it was never going to happen. And we'll probably get a Dark Knight Returns adaptation from Snyder in the end, because something very interesting about this director, he seems to always get his way in the end. He wanted to make Star Wars. He got to make his own Star Wars. He wanted to release his cut of Justice League. He released his cut of Justice League. He seems to always win in the end, and I think he'll win again here. But Snyder isn't the point of reference today. It's about a company that's fallen so far from grace when you think about the Warner Brothers themselves when they founded this great studio. And the principles it was founded on: creative freedom, artistic integrity. For years, this was the point of Warner Brothers. You know, having to compete with Disney's animation house, they created stuff like Looney Tunes, something very, very unique. It was nothing like Mickey. You know, Bugs Bunny was nothing like Mickey and Donald. It was the stark opposite. But the characters were still animals, but you could even argue that Daffy Duck and Bugs Bunny were more interesting and more fun characters than Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck. Come on, admit it. At their best. Not these shitty remade cartoons now, but the classics, the originals. Because you know what? The pioneers and the inventors, everyone, are not from this world. We have all the technology, we have AI, but the real inventions came before we were born. Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, The Flash, Marvel Comics from Stan Lee being inspired by Superman and taking inspiration from that and creating superheroes that were more relatable. The inventors, everything that's been invented, the television, everything, was before people actually had the technology we have today. Creators and filmmakers today are just people with tracing paper, copying and adapting other people's works, and not so well. And considering they have tracing paper, they should be doing a much better job. Don't you agree? And this merger talk with Zaslav and Paramount to merge Warner Brothers Discovery and Paramount Global is very, very interesting. It kind of sums up where we are today, because we're not talking about exciting movies or television anymore. The most exciting thing to talk about in a December, which we should be talking about the latest great Christmas movie, or, you know, something like when we were getting the Lord of the Rings or the Harry Potter movies around this time of year, right? But not anymore. Not anymore. Do you remember the Chronicle of Narnia films they made? Even they were quite exciting at the time. There's no excitement, so we're talking about a potential merger. And I read on Variety, they were saying, yeah, Warner Brothers would have access to things like Terminator, this, that, the other. Even South Park. South Park could do DC parodies as well. They've probably done one already. So it's very, very exciting. It is. But, you know, in terms of me thinking about DC, and DC has to be the priority here. It's the biggest IP that they have. And they have Harry Potter, which is huge. What happens to that idea? Because and this is another interesting question to ask you as well while I'm here. What happens to Max? Because they have Paramount Plus. So they could merge. Again, you could merge Max. You could call it Paramount Max. I mean, not great. Whatever they're going to call it, right? But Paramount Plus has a better image than Max at the end of the day. And a lot of good stuff on it. Paramount also have Tom Cruise. Now that for DC could be a very, very interesting situation. Not just to have him in the movies. Now are you wondering why all of a sudden the whispers were that Tom Cruise loved the Flash movie? Do you get the connection? So these talks were probably happening secretly before, you know, they could even talk about a merger. Allegedly, of course. I'm not making any accusations. I would never do that. But it's interesting because they can merge their streaming services, which have a lot of fucking content. After all, say what you want about Paramount or WB, but the content on the streaming services is golden and they can charge a lot of money for it. The problem is there's no money these days. There's wars, cost of living crisis. People simply don't have the money to pay 30 quid a year or whatever it is for Paramount Plus, even a combined service with all the goodies on it. People simply don't have the money. It's quite simple. But the value of this merger is huge. Is it a good idea? It's a very good idea, yes, because Warner Brothers need to merge with someone. They're in financial trouble. You know, Zaslav's tried his best to clean up a mess because the mess isn't Zaslav's. He has tried to clean up the mess others have created throughout the years. We have to be honest about that. We can't put everything on David Zaslav, but it's a mess and someone needs to clean it up. And merging with Paramount will fix their financial mess. Because I don't think Paramount are in any trouble from what I can see from the outside looking in. They're not, none of them are making the money they once did. You know, there's a problem there because they're antagonizing their own consumers, which isn't a wise thing to do. But then they're not very wise and they're not very smart in the industry. So we already know that from the shitty decisions that they make. But yeah, this is huge. But it puts DC in an uncertain future. James Gunn wouldn't have been given the heads up about these negotiations. James Gunn would have been told, when we were told, by the trades. He would have been waking up yesterday morning with a sinking feeling that everything he's been planning may never come to fruition.